Welcome to Recruitment Leaders Unlocked. This is the first episode in the series focusing on growth. And in it today, I interview Callum Gray, who is the co-founder of Provn Talent based up in Edinburgh. Callum describes the journey from startup to scale up that him and his co-founder have been on in the first 4 or 5 years of business existence. And what really comes across from Callum is the importance of balance, getting that balance between hiring the right staff, developing that staff, investing in technology, the balance between aggressive growth and also retaining the quality of the business the services that they provide. But what really comes across to the balance is doing all of that whilst retaining the humanity and the culture that makes Provn what it is and makes it a business that they would want to work within and operate. So hopefully you'll enjoy it, but keep an eye out for future episodes of the Recruitment Leaders Unlocked. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Recruitment Leaders Unlocked, hosted by Jump Advisory Group. I'm Martin Ewings, and today I'm going to be interviewing Callum Gray, who, along with Jordan Marlin, is the co-founder of Provn Talent, who are a fairly new but rapidly growing recruitment business based in Edinburgh. So, Callum, before we start the questions in the interview, it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hey, Marty. Yeah, sure. So my name's Callum Gray. I've been in the recruitment world, I guess, for the last 7 years, initially in the kind of selling recruitment software to recruitment agencies and then moving over to the dark side and moving into a recruitment role. So in 2023, myself and my co-director, Jordan Marlin, set up Provn Talent based in Edinburgh. We focus on Scottish tech recruitment, typically more senior level is our approach, and it's really high quality partnership led recruitment. Typically at that more senior level.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, look, I've got a series of questions for you today, Callum, which we want to explore the growth journey for you as a recruitment business, particularly coming from a startup basis, and how you've overcome certain challenges that you've faced in the market. So to kick off, what common growing pains did you face as the business has scaled, and how have you addressed them to make sure you keep that momentum?
Yeah, well, I'd say we've not necessarily scaled as such. You know, we've doubled in size from being the two of us to four. So I guess for us, that's scaled to a degree, and it's not quite where we want it to be in the future. But so far, in terms of growing pains, I'd say it's been less financially focused. We've always had pretty solid cash flow and consistent billings and clients and jobs coming in. So it's been less focused on the financial struggle. It's been more focused around making sure that the people we bring on board are right from a cultural perspective. In a smaller business, you know, your first employee is 33% of the business. So for us, it's so important to make sure that they're going to be right. And when we brought on our second person, it's half of the business is now other people. So it's making sure that it's they're the right fit from a cultural perspective. But then on top of that, it's teaching the right behaviors. Our approach so far has been bringing on people with kind of minimal to no recruitment experience. Not to say that we won't bring on experienced people in the future, but it's just worked for us so far. But with that, obviously, it takes time to get people up to speed. So in terms of growing the business at this point, it's been investing our time, a lot of our time into getting the people and our employees and team to the right level.
So yeah, having met yourself and Jordan a couple of times, I know how kind of disciplined and dedicated you are. How did you go about selecting those people? What is a right person to join your business?
I say it's people that are able to learn and take on feedback. It's obviously quite an intense environment. Like, people in our team are working with two directors of the business, two owners of the business. So I think it's people that are able to fit into that sort of environment, take on feedback. I think the way that we work is we're all in the same environment for the majority of the time. So if something goes wrong on a call, it's about kind of all discussing how that could improve or be improved for the next time that comes up. So learning from mistakes, but for some people that just wouldn't work. You know, it's a very intense environment. So I think it's finding people that would fit into that, and also people that are keen to be part of a growing business. You know, it's people are so important the people in our team are so important to us and the future of the business. So it's people that are going to be able to kind of positively impact the future of Provn.
Yeah, and I know you've got a really compelling kind of reason for people to want to join the business. It's quite an exciting prospect and kind of vision that you have. Um, Obviously, you've mentioned there that you like to bring on people that are at early stages of their recruitment career and help build them into recruitment consultants. So, how do you get the balance right about learning from mistakes in terms of the classic argument of working from home, working in the office, learning from you and Jordan as well? How do you get that balance right?
Um, for us, we're quite a FaceTime business. You know, a lot of the stuff we do is face to face. Up until a certain point, anyway. Like flexibility is so important in the world we live in. I think every business needs to offer more and more flexibility. One thing we do to counteract that is we do a 9-day fortnight. So to give our team a little bit more flexibility and work-life balance, we offer that 9-day fortnight, which is quite different. And I've not seen too many recruitment agencies do that. But when it comes to being in the office, yeah, we are there majority of the time, unless there's not a need to be. If that makes sense.
Yep. Yep, very much so. Okay, so moving on then, how are you balancing the immediate business need? Because obviously growing a business, you have to address what's right in front of you straight away. How do you balance that with the long-term vision that you have when you plan for growth?
Yeah, it's a really good question for us. Uh, we've moved away from being consultants, and we're in a role where half the time we're consultants, and we need to bring in business and fill jobs and make placements. Um, but then the other half, it's around trying to grow a business and take off your consultant hat and put on the director hat. So the balance has been hard, and at times we have felt that. You know, if I think about one thing that we did do is we put in a weekly meeting to discuss the kind of business where it's at, not live jobs or candidates or anything like that. It's more focused around the strategy and the growth. Um, but one challenge I found is that um, we're in a small environment, small office, doing our candidate calls and our business development calls, and then all of a sudden we need to shift into being directors
Oh,
and chatting over strategy. Um, Whereas when we were previously in kind of corporate roles, you know, you'd maybe go off to a boardroom with senior people in the business and you'd have a really solid agenda, and it's a slightly different scenario. So finding that balance between consultant and director is hard. But I think we're now at the point where we've managed to do so, and we kind of take ourselves away from the environment every other Friday and do a full business day, which has been critical, really. So yes,
It's important to you that the new members of staff that come on board, the ones you have now and the ones you'll have in the future, is it important that they understand, share, and resonate with the kind of vision that you and Jordan have for the business?
yes, 100%. You know, if they don't align to it, then what's the point? I think we need to all make sure we're singing off the same page, and um, we fit it into our kind of interview questions when we're bringing on new people around what sort of environment they want to be in, and um, how they can maybe positively affect the growth and plans for the future of our business. So yeah, it's so important.
And then when you think of kind of the short-term needs, obviously a scaling business, cash flow, revenue growth are really important things. But sometimes you can chase that at the expense of long-term vision. How do you make sure that when you're making decisions about which customers to deal with, which commercials to sign up to, that you do have that one eye on the long-term view?
Yeah, and I'd say we have fell into that trap before of just focusing on making placements and making calls, and you know what, we've got some new jobs on, so let's just push off this meeting to focus on strategy. So we have fell into that trap. Um, but I think it's just been really rigid with the approach, and making sure that like you said, the clients we work with are the right level. And we've had to learn that over time. It's putting our time into the right places, the right commitment, and the right types of customer that we want to work with, which has evolved over the time in the business.
Great. Okay, so moving on then, what advice would you give to recruitment leaders who are in a similar position to you now, or as you have been in the last year or two? What advice would you give to them about building and retaining a high performing team during that kind of rapid expansion period?
Yeah, so up until this point, um, we've been through the interview process to hire 3 times. 2 of them have been super successful. one of them wasn't quite as successful. And I think if we reflected and looked at that process, we maybe got a bit excited and we didn't stick to that rigid, consistent recruitment process that we had been used to. So that's the first thing, is really nailing down that recruitment process, making sure that we make it consistent, the questions are the same, um, and not just get excited at the prospect of we're ready to grow. So let's make this hire and rush through the process.
Yeah.
Like I said, every person you bring in is such a big part of the team environment, so it needs to be right. So that's the first point, is making sure that recruitment process is done correctly. But apart from that, in terms of building a high performing team, for us, it's making it rewarding environment, making it a fun environment, also offering really good progression. So Jordan and I both came from businesses that offered really good commission schemes and really good incentives, which is obviously quite common in recruitment. But for us, it showed us, what it's like to have that. So we wanted to offer that to our team. So we offer a really good commission scheme, and really good incentives, but also offer some really good progression. And I think by the time people come on board to us, we know that they're not looking for a kind of global role within a big corporate company. But what we can do is offer them a either 180 role or opportunity to move into a sales role. We can give them the opportunity to move into a more senior level role, or just stay in a delivery focused position, and also allow them to kind of bring in ideas to the business. So giving a really good career and progression opportunity to people is probably say the second piece.
Okay, so could you bring that process to life a little bit around, what are the non-negotiables that you've learned you now need to make sure are part of that recruitment process so you get the right hire?
Yeah, sure. So I think consistent questions. I think we were really tailoring the interviews based on the person, based on their experience. Like I said, we hire people with little to no to almost minimal recruitment experience or sales experience sometimes. Um, so I think we thought asking people with around recruitment related questions or sales related questions there'd be no point if they've not got experience. But I don't think that was the right way to do it, because people can start using their initiative, and it just allows people to actually think about things and show us what they do know about sales or recruitment, even if they've not got experience. So yeah, making it a really consistent process with consistent questions rather than tailoring the interview depending on years of experience or backgrounds or whatnot.
Yep. Yep. And you also mentioned progression's important, that you show them that there is a career within Provn and not just a job. How do you demonstrate that?
I think the proof's in the pudding. I think like offering them uh, certain pathways, but also showing them in return. You can talk the talk and say that we can move into a more senior focused role or move into a sales role, but if it doesn't come to light, then people are going to leave. So as an example, with Killian, who was our first employee, he wanted to move into uh, he wasn't sure actually whether he wanted to move in sales. But after he got up to speed in candidates and delivery, he thought, you know what, I really want to give this sales thing a shot. So that's what he's been focusing on for the last kind of 3 months, and he's doing really well at it. So I think it's actually showing people what they could go into and what they could do, and then giving them the best possible opportunity to do so and train them the right way.
And I guess that really helps now when you're making future hires. You can point to Killian and say, you know, that person joined with an aspiration for a career, but not sure exactly what pathway, and we've helped him achieve that.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. But one thing that always interests me, and it might be a difficult question to answer, so I'll be kind with my judgment of your answer. That when you're a startup business, that balance between the pressure of having to generate revenue and having to cover costs, etc., of new hires versus what you've talked about, which is that culture and that need for fun and enjoyment and kind of fulfillment of the individual. How do you make sure you get that culture balance correct?
Um, I think from learning from mistakes, I think we went through a bit of a period where we just focused purely on doing the job and the gritty picking up the phone and trying to get jobs on, and particularly when it was in some more challenging months. And I think we learned that the recruitment is done best when people are enjoying it. So I think we had to learn from our mistakes there, and came out the other side and planned some really fun stuff and making sure that it was incentive driven and getting out of the office and not just being behind a desk on the phone. And off the back of that came good numbers and good consistency. So I think it was a bit of learning from mistake, and we went through that slump, but yeah, we learned from it, which is good.
Great. Good answer. So pivoting slightly then, as a kind of growth focused startup, what role has innovation or technology played in that growth? And then how do you decide when and where to invest in tech?
Yeah, it's super important. We've had Jordan and I actually have had slightly different thoughts as we've gone
Okay.
on throughout this, and I'm lucky that Jordan's very focused on our tech stack and what we use. I think we live in a world now that's so that automation and AI is everywhere, and everything you look at, it talks about automation or AI, which is great. But I think the thing we need to remember is that it's particularly with Provn and our approach, it's human focused, and we need to keep that human focus. There's tools that will do everything in the recruitment process, from um, lead gen through to candidate attraction, outreach follow up, interviews. You can automate the whole process. I think that really starts to take away from what's really important, which is the human approach. So
Yeah.
we've done a bit of trial and error, and we found a few things that really work for us. But it's around automating things that are kind of more monotonous, kind of time consuming jobs, and trying to automate that and make that more efficient, and then focusing our time in the things that you really need a human for, which for us is probably more sales and outreach. We found, so a bit of trial and error, but yeah, trying to definitely using tech to automate as much as possible that is in line with our kind of brand of human approach, human focused.
Okay. Great. And obviously, there's so many shiny toys out there, and there's so much presence on social media, LinkedIn, whatever else about the latest tech to come out. Do you have a process that you and Jordan go through as to when and what and how much you invest in a certain technology or not?
Not necessarily a defined process. I think we've tried a few things here and there, and we've worked out what does work for us as a business. Like I said, we tried a few things for sales and outreach, but ultimately, what we found best is that our approach is is making sure you're in it and making sure you don't automate too much, or else you start to fall away from it. So I wouldn't say we have a rigid process. It's more kind of trial and error and seeing what
Good.
works and whatnot. And we have invested in some things that have worked really well, and we've put more money into that and um, increased our license amount and whatnot. And then we've tried things that we probably shouldn't have done. And again, that's just part of it, I guess.
Yeah. And so obviously most technology in the recruitment space is only as good as the data that's in it or the sort of the user's usability of the technology. How do you make sure that the staff that you're hiring understand the importance of, if you're going to invest in the technology, they need to use its full functionality and put the data in as needed?
Yeah, I think that comes down to like day one onboarding, teaching the right processes, which has been really important for us. And luckily, because of the people we've brought on board to this point, with kind of minimal to no experience, we've taught them the right way and taught them the right processes. I can imagine how challenging that could be when you've got lots more employees at different levels and different backgrounds. How challenging that could be. Luckily, it's not been too much of an issue for us, but we know how valuable our data is. So yeah, we've taught the right processes, make sure that we follow the right patterns.
Yeah. Okay, great. Moving on to the next question then. You'll know better than anyone, there are a lot of good recruitment businesses in Scotland. I know from listening to you previously about how focused you are on your vision to make Proven a dominant force in that tech space within Scotland. But what strategies have you found the most effective for standing out in what is a very competitive recruitment market in Scotland?
Yeah. Um, I think that if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said standardization over generalization, specialization over generalization, uh, would probably be the answer I'd given you. Like, I don't think it's quite as relevant now. I think specializing is probably the norm, and most agencies do have a specialist route, I'd say, over being generalist. Um, but what I would say is that our approach has all been partnership focused and partnership led. So we've tried to move away from uh, being, going after spot business and going after super competitive business, and trying to focus on nailing down those partnerships and even exclusive, relationships.
Gotcha.
For us, we're at the point now where we will walk away from business if there's 3, 4, 5 agencies on it, because it's just not worth our time, and it just doesn't fit into the way we do things. So we really go after that partnership focused approach, and that allows us to actually get to know our clients very well, represent them in the best way, but also make the best hires because they listen to you as a valued recruitment partner. Whereas if someone's working with 4 or 5 agencies, it just doesn't seem to work. So yeah, partnership focused approach, keeping that human approach, which is what I've talked about a few times, but it's super important to us, and giving a really good candidate experience. I think a lot of agencies don't do that. So standing out in the market for us is all focused around providing that amazing experience, not just the clients and people that are going to pay you, but the people that matter just as much, which is the candidates.
So what does that kind of exceptional candidate experience look like? What do you do to differentiate yourself?
Yeah, so from the very offset, it's not about when you get a job on, finding the candidate and speaking to them. For us, we've typically already spoken to a lot of the candidates we place 3, 4, 5 times before. So it's making sure that we're consistently building that network. One thing that we've really focused on in the last 6 months is getting that FaceTime, because I think the whole world moved away from FaceTime after kind of COVID. So what we're trying to bring back is getting out to meet candidates, meet people for coffees, networking, and just building relationships in that more face-to-face way. Has been I'd say that's the start of it. But then keeping in touch with candidates. I think this is where most people are pretty good at, is keeping in touch with candidates throughout the interview process and making sure they're still on the market, still warm, not got anything else on the go. But then that's when it starts to drop off. If a candidate isn't the right fit for your role, I'd probably say, most recruiters, unfortunately, they're not no longer valuable to them, so they don't keep in touch and should provide the feedback or whatnot. I think that's where we're pretty strong, is we make sure we give the good feedback, we chase the client and make sure that they're providing good feedback, and that the candidate can actually learn for the next time that they go for a role. So yeah, that's probably say where we stand out a bit more.
Okay. And do you have any views on, for yourself and Jordan, because you're still very hands-on, but also the new staff that you have as well? Do you have any views on the balance between the brand of the business and Provn and the individual brand, and how do you go about kind of supporting both of those things to differentiate?
Yeah. Individual brands super important. I think that's one thing I've learned. That if you've not got a name in the market, then a lot of people won't work with you or won't trust you as a valued recruiter. So having your individual brand is super important. But for us, it's all come down to being part of the Provn team and making sure that all of our individual brands are aligned. We really try and push for people to have their own opinion and bring their own ideas to the table and whatnot. So yeah, we're fully supportive of that. But I think what we're very good at is being aligned with the right Provn brand and making sure that people we bring on board are aligned to that Provn brand.
Great. Okay. So looking back on the journey you've had so far then, with Provn, what one decision or mindset shift made the biggest impact on your ability to scale the business as you have so far?
Yeah, I think that what we've done up until this point is um, made sure that we have set goals for when we need to hire. So if we think about our first hire, we'd actually um, set a goal in place of when we'd make that hire before we'd even started the business. So that was down to the state of the business, the cash flow, the number of pipeline of jobs and clients coming aboard. So we'd said when we reach this level, when we reach this point, that's when we're able to make that hire. And we've stuck to that throughout the process. So when we made our first hire, we said, okay, when we get to this point, we can make the second hire, and we're going to keep following that pattern because it seems to have worked. So yeah, making sure that things are planned out and with the right kind of goals and targets in place.
Okay. And then I suppose the flip side of that question, obviously looking back at the decision that's made the biggest impact, you just explained there. But what about when you set the business up and on day one, you and Jordan sat down did you have a view of how you thought it would go, and how has it differed from that?
Honestly, we've been pretty bang on, which is crazy. I don't know if we manifested it, but a lot of the targets and goals that we had for year one, I think we hit 95% of the goals that we wanted for year one, which is great. And the targets, and then we've done that right up until year five. So I don't know what that's going to look like, because 5 years is super different. But definitely year one and going into year two, we've been pretty bang on with where we want to be and what we want to achieve. I think we're very goal driven, so I think that's given a lot of focus, and maybe meant we've pushed a little bit more at times where we could have just sat back and continued as we were. Um, but yeah, setting those goals, it's been pretty aligned. But we'll see what the next few years looks like, because we did pivot a wee bit.
Yep. Great. Well, look, thank you very much for answering those questions so far. And if I can kind of summarize the conversation that we've had, it really comes across that you and Jordan have a very clear vision for the business, and that whilst you do trial and error around that vision, that's something that's kind of kept you on the path and kind of kept you honest. And you've looked to bring people into your business that understand and share and get excited by that vision. And that's kind of the glue that's holding the business together. Would you say that's a fair summary?
Yeah, 100%. A really good summary. I think the people we bring into the business, yes, they hold us together and allow us to hit the goals that we'd set out. We're also very open to listening to new ideas and goals, and suggestions from people coming into the business. I think we know what we know. So if we brought in someone who thinks about things slightly different, I think that's actually allowed us to drive forward already with some of the people we brought in.
And another thing I wrote down was the kind of human touch. And what I mean by that is I like the fact you have that rigidity of your vision and your plan, but you talked about making mistakes and learning from them and not dwelling on the mistakes. You've been quite frank with sharing them here, and it's not, you don't say it, with your head in your hands and you're about to bang your head against the wall. You kind of went, we made a mistake, we learned from it, we moved on. But that kind of human touch around using technology to free up the humanity of how you deal with candidates and clients, when you're talking about dealing with your staff and getting the balance right between pressure and fun and engagement, it's about making sure they're committed and connected as human beings as well. So making sure that your business has that humanity about it seems quite important to you as well.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't quite have that reaction at the time that we learned from those mistakes. But yeah, definitely now I can look back and learn from it.
Okay, so final question from me then. If you had one piece of advice to give to a recruitment leader, either thinking of starting up their business or someone at a similar stage to yourself, what would that be?
Yeah, I would probably say, don't compare to other agencies and other people. I think there's that quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And with Jordan and I, we catch each other out at times when we're chatting around other businesses and where they're at and what they've managed to do in the same amount of time. And I think it's really important to think about, just focus on your own journey, and remember that every business is different, every market is different. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes at a lot of other businesses, if they've had investors or background or experience they've got in the team. So I think just focus on your own journey and don't compare, because it will just start eating at you and means that you can't really enjoy what you're doing. So yeah, don't compare.
Brilliant. Look, thank you very much for the time today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. As I said, this has been the first in the podcast series hosted by Jump about growth. So we'll be interviewing your peers, people who've working in single solo businesses right up to businesses with 50 heads plus. So please tune in and listen to how your peers are answering those questions as well, and the challenges they're facing. But just leaves me to say, Callum, thank you very much for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Cool. Thanks so much.